Today is Monday, February the 12th. We welcome everyone to the McDowell County Board of Commissioners boardroom tonight. Your boardroom. We're here to do business, and we welcome you. At this time, we would like to ask everyone to please stand. And we always begin our meeting with a prayer and the pledge. So tonight, Commissioner Brown will lead us in our prayer, and Commissioner Green will do our pledge.
Bow our head. Father, we thank you for this day, and we thank you, dear Lord, for most of all for saving our souls. And we pray, Father God, that you just help us tonight as we go through this meeting. Guide us in everything that we say or do, and let everything we do, Father, be to uplift thy name first, and then our community and our county and our state. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks so much. All right, gentlemen, at this time, we have our minutes. What's the pleasure of the board concerning the minutes as presented?
Motion approved. Second.
Okay, discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Thank you, gentlemen. We have the agenda for tonight. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda as presented?
No, sir.
All right, there being none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Move approved. Second.
Discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. All right, let's go to our first appointment. We have the distinguished Weyland Prebor with us and other staff members. I see somebody else approaching that does not look like Weyland. So let's go ahead and turn the floor over to you tonight. It's good to have you, Brenda, and thank you for being here tonight and give us some good news, exciting news about the senior games.
Okay. First of all, I want to say I thank y'all for letting me stand up here and present this challenge to y'all. Senior Games is held the last part of April into May. It's for anyone age 50 as of December the 31st of this year on up. But anyway, this is a challenge, and it says, are you up to the challenge? McDowell Senior Games challenges McDowell County Commissioners that are 50 or better to join the McDowell Senior Games for a friendly competition in a variety of events. However, your age or specialty, there is a way that you can be a part of the fun. We would be honored to have you as a volunteer. Why accept the challenge? Because your involvement will increase community awareness about McDowell Senior Games while encourage others to take an active part in McDowell Senior Games by participating or volunteering. Your reward, the recognition you will receive for your achievements and the competition the found of a newfound friend, or just be involved with other people. And like I say, this is short. The challenge is to the commissioners and Ashley as a volunteer. We'd love to have you join.
And the clerk to the board.
Yes, and the clerk.
I don't think
She's not old
50
enough.
yet,
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Brown, I'm not sure.
She can volunteer.
Qualified.
Well, I'm not, I just barely 50, but
I knew they'd do this, but okay. But just to leave you with the thought, you don't stop playing because you grow old. You grow old because you stop playing. And we have a good time, and we'd love to have y'all come out and join us. And I've give y'all packages of stuff in there. You can contact me at any time for any more information or to help us join.
we accept.
No, I've been at the talent show before, and that is, the seniors in McDowell County, they get competitive at that talent show.
Last year, we could not have it because we didn't have enough participation. So this year, I hope to try to encourage, because it's not only sport events, like he said. You have a talent show part of it, and you also have artists, where we have anything from wood carving to quilting to knitting to, it's just opened. You know, it's right up to coloring. So, but anyway, we would love to have y'all participate, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Brenda. All right, we wish you the very best, and hope you have a great turnout. And we have 3 board members over the age of 50, I do believe, that may be interested in getting with you to.
Those 3.
And me and Matt don't mind to volunteer to help, since we're under 50. So,
I'm gonna
We've
watch
already
Tony
signed
swim.
you up for talent show.
okay, let's move on to the next item right quick. Waylon, anything you need to add to that, sir?
No, one thing I was going to suggest is if you guys are new and joining us, what is the cost right now for a new person?
$6.
$6 to come out and have an awesome amount of time, a lot of fun. But obviously what you also said is we can use some great volunteers this year. We like to encourage anybody in the community to come out and join us. It'll be a lot of fun. It always is every year.
Well, David and Matthew are going to sponsor the other three of us.
Since they
Bravo.
we don't cover it.
Bravo.
All right, great. Well, thanks so much, Brenda, and we appreciate the work that you and Weyland, everybody does. Our senior center, we've got one of the best in the state.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got programs, activities, and on the day-to-day, Monday through Friday, around dinner time, how many people would you estimate are coming through the facility over there, senior center?
Oh gosh, on a daily basis, we have over 200 people that come through our facility, but if you just mentioned lunch, we have between 115 to 125 at the Marion site. At the Old Fort site, we got between 60 and 75 eating down there. So we're feeding a lot of people on site, plus you got those home delivered meals.
And if anybody wants to help volunteer to deliver meals, just see Weyland.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks so much, guys. Men and ladies, appreciate you. All right, let's move to our next item on our appointment schedule. This is the opioid litigation discussion. Mr. Wooten, if you don't mind, lead us out, and we have our county attorney here, Mr. Coates, also for this item.
That's right. Last month, there was a discussion was added to the agenda to talk about this item, the opioid litigation. So just a recap of that briefly, there's a national course of action. Several attorneys groups have come together to essentially file a lawsuit against manufacturers, distributors, and other folks associated with the production of opiates. This action has been going on for maybe about 6 months or so. We had some folks with this firm come in October and speak with us. It was very preliminary at that time. They were just getting started in North Carolina, and it seemed a little premature at the time. And so based on last month's discussion and sort of consensus from the board to get a little more information, we did have another meeting with the local representative of this initiative, Mr. Harold Siegel, who is a native of McDowell County. He currently practices law in Asheville, and he is affiliated with the national litigation group that is seeing to this lawsuit. Currently, this lawsuit has been filed. It is in court in northern Ohio. It's a federal lawsuit. They are going through some of the initial phases right now. Mr. Siegel said it is not too late if there was interest to join in. He did say it would need to be based on a recognition by this board and this organization that opioids are a problem in this county. And you have a resolution that is attached that you would be asked to pass that states that it is an issue. Mr. Kehler is here and his staff on another item, but they have seen on a daily basis the impact that sometimes overprescribing or illegal obtaining of these drugs has done to our community. So I think there's a recognition that we do have a problem, like most counties in North Carolina, if not all of them. It's not just here. It's not just in Buncombe, elsewhere. So this isn't a total solution. It can help to address some of the solutions that are being talked about in the county as far as treatment. We've spent enormous sums on expanding our jail, about to expand our courthouse, and it's not all related to opioids, but a lot of it can be tied back into it. Foster care is another issue where there's a problem. And so, again, this isn't a cure for all our ills, but if the lawsuit does proceed and there is something in favor of the county, it could help repay some of those costs already expended, but also help treat this problem that our county is facing. So Mr. Coates is here. He's the legal expert, obviously, for the county. If you had any questions about the legal aspect. He's our guy, obviously, but what did I leave out, Mr. Coates?
Well, nothing really I can add to it. There are heavyweights pursuing these cases. One of the attorneys is one of the ones who was involved in the tobacco lawsuit. We'll have a local contact person with Attorney Siegel, who's in Buncombe County and a native of McDowell County, and he has a long track record of involvement with litigation for environmental problems, issues like this. In fact, he worked with Aaron Brockovich on California. But the purpose of lawsuits collect money to help this county deal with the cost involved with the EMS and police and setting up clinics if we need to. We'll have to establish our damages, but there'll be a model to help us do that. As of December the 5th, there were 180 lawsuits filed by different government agencies, and I suspect there's probably that many more now. And in fact, I talked with a person concerning Rutherford County, and they're going to be, I believe, joining the lawsuit. I believe Caldwell County has just done so. But statistically, as of March of 18, 115 Americans die every day, overdose of opioids. And it's not just a weak person that gets hooked on opioids. People with pain, chronic pain, when they were first prescribed, doctors were told, everything's fine, this is not addictive. And it wasn't the truth. So that's what the purpose of the lawsuits are, is to recoup some of the expense and heartache that's been caused by these drugs.
And the information we received too, when we met with Mr. Siegel, and that opiate use or abuse leads to other forms of drug abuse.
Yeah, heroin.
Segue.
Yeah. Let me say what the county will be doing. I'll be monitoring what goes through by just looking at the documents, but I won't be making any appearances in court, nor will anybody locally be doing that. The contract that the county is asked to enter into is a no-win, no-pay contract, plus no expense cost. So only if a recovery is made will there be a payment to the attorneys involved, and that's the contracts they've done, and it'll be a 25% cut from whatever is recovered. So it's really no expense to the county, other than eventually we'll have to get a model as to what our real damages are, and that'll put Mr. Kehler and some of those folks and myself and law enforcement together to talk about and see what's happening to us. But it's, I think, a win-win, as they say, situation for us.
After spending 19 years with the sheriff's office in this county, some folks may not realize just what this situation is doing to families in our county. And I just saw Lisa Sprouse come in with DSS. Our children are suffering because of this, and the only way to stop these problems is cut it off at the head. And I think this litigation, if we can enter into it, will be a good thing if we can win these cases.
I don't know much about drugs, fortunately, but maybe Wiiliam could address it. Could you kind of explain what this is and how it's used, the effects of it, that kind of thing, for just briefly?
So when you're talking about opioids, the opioids that we have seen started out as being prescription painkillers,
Okay.
and then transformed or transferred into more of synthetic type opioids known as fentanyl, which on the black market it became very popular. It's morphine essentially times 1,000 as far as the power of it. And then you started seeing, as that become harder to obtain, you started seeing heroin, which is opium-based, start making its way into the streets, so forth. So there's multiple factors. This all started, I think we would agree, as the crackdown on meth became harder. They turned to prescription pain medication. It was easier to prescribe, or it was easier to obtain a prescription from a legal standpoint. And then it's not uncommon for us to see patients that have hundreds, if not thousands, of pain pills in their possession at one time, and they ultimately make it to the black market.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Coates, in a meeting we were in, also these companies that that they're going after, that are producing these products, they're just, they have no factories to make them. Expand on that a
The
little bit.
distributors.
Yeah.
The way that was set up to disperse these drugs was through distributors, and the distributors were supposed to account to the DEA for the number of prescriptions written. So if there was a spike in the local pharmacy, all of a sudden instead of 1,000 pills a month, we're doing 10,000. That was supposed to be noted by the distributor to the DEA, and then the DEA was supposed to come find out who was writing the prescriptions. So they weren't reporting. The DEA wasn't actually checking them like they should, and the distributors were telling the doctors, these are not addictive. These are fine. You can use them for chronic pain. And who uses these pills? Veterans use them. Injured workers use them. People who hurt themselves and get chronic pain. And they are so addicting. If you've ever tried to quit smoking, think about 1,000 times more addictive than just tobacco. And that's what happens. And then what's going to happen is we're going to have a backlash of not being prescribed. And then folks are going to be going out on the street to try and find whatever it might be, whether it be heroin or fentanyl, to replace those drugs that they've all of a sudden, everybody's got scared and we're not going to prescribe them anymore. So that's going to be a problem we're going to have to deal with too. So 115 a day, I think, will go up.
But you know, Fred, with the education, I spent 26 years in EMS, I knew that opioids was addictive. The doctor has a whole lot more education than what I do. It didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that those medications are addictive. You can be addictive to Pepsi or Mountain Dew, just like you say with cigarettes. But, you know, along with that line, and I'll just go ahead and say, you know, alcohol is one of the most abused drugs that there is in the United States. But nobody ever tackles it. Nobody ever says it because it's money. And most of the time you will see, the studies that I've seen, is that alcohol, along with those opioids, I mean, it's just, and of course, you know, like you say, we hit the meth, now we're going to hit this, now what's next? They go to those street drugs. Or laced, that's just the thing. They're not going to sell you.
Laced with fentanyl.
They're not going to
That's
sell
death.
you straight cocaine.
Yeah.
When they can lace it with whatever else,
Right.
washing powders or whatever else is out there, bath salts and everything else. But, you know, the doctors, sometimes I buy into that, but I can't believe that they didn't know that would be addictive. Because if we know it from an EMT standpoint or from a paramedic standpoint, a doctor, surely to go to this education, would know that those are addictive.
It's kind of like a little wink and a nod will go on.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But what you're being asked to do is to adopt the resolution that's in your packet and authorize the county to enter into the lawsuit and then proceed from there, and I'll give you updates as I get them.
Okay, any other comments or questions by board members? What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion, we approve the resolution and get authority to represent it for the county.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Thank you, Fred. All right, let's move to item A. We're a little ahead of schedule now. Item A, Mr. Wooten, that would be the shooting range update. And we've had movement there, so go right ahead, sir, and lead us
Yes,
out.
sir. On February 27th, Commissioner Brown, Mr. Harmon, and I went to Raleigh for a committee meeting of the Wildlife Resources Commission. So this wasn't the full commission, but it was a pretty large committee made up of their members, their lands committee. That committee is charged with looking at acquisition projects, establishing new facilities, that sort of thing. And one of the new facilities they talked about was the shooting range for McDowell County. I won't speak for Commissioner Brown or Mr. Harmon, but there seemed to be a consensus from the committee members that they love this project. They love the enthusiasm from the commissioners and the local community. They did request that we help them find outside assistance to help pay for some of the infrastructure, as in, access roads and that sort of thing. But as far as the actual range itself, they were very enthusiastic about it. They've had some opposition in other counties, and the reception has obviously been very positive here. They love the location in between two fairly large metros. And so it was very positive. They didn't vote on it, but there was a consensus to keep moving forward with it, with that outside request. There has been communication. Senator Heiss had sent his legislative assistant to that meeting. She went back immediately after, I think, and spoke with the senator about the meeting, how it went. There has been a communication with the senator about assisting with the road specifically. I spoke to his assistant today that they are going to work on that through this upcoming session. I know Commissioner Brown had spoken with the senator recently about it as well, and Representative Dobson. So that's really, if there's a holdup right now, it's looking for, because they would like to put the wildlife money into the range and not into infrastructure, I guess. So still moving, still positive. So we're still plugging away on it.
Okay, sounds great. And for the record, too, the night they held the public hearing, there was a decent crowd there, and everybody there basically, minus one person, and he was not really speaking against the range, but everybody there was speaking in favor of the range and even wanting the distance to be even longer than what was initially talked about, the 100 yards. So very positive. Let's move to the next item. This would be the courthouse project update under old business. Mr. Wooden, go ahead, sir.
Right. The same day, on February 27th, you had a adjourned session and a public hearing on the courthouse project. And again, just to recap where that ended, you awarded a low bid for beam construction and approved that financing package with the lender. That has been sent to the local government commission somewhat, I guess, a couple of days after that meeting. They have not asked for comments or additional information from us. Mr. Coates is working on some information with that. So at this point, no news is good news as far as the LGC. They do meet in early April, and after, if that's a positive vote, then we will be able to move forward with the contract approval. So it's just waiting on LGC at this point, and all signs still point to positive.
Okay. We have one other item I think we can handle before we move to our next appointment. Item C, the Stacy Hill Road water line update. Go ahead, Mr. Sweeten.
Yes, sir. Again, quickly on this one, March 1st, engineer, myself, and Mr. DePoyster opened bids on the Stacy Hill Road water project. The bids were a little bit higher than estimated. You can see there on your sheet, there were, the construction cost was at $1.3 million. The estimated cost is $1 million. The engineer has been in communication with the low bidder to possibly reduce the line size. It's probably oversized at 12 inches, and so we're going to go back. We have asked them to price it at 8 inches, which should suffice for that road. And so we haven't heard back. So we're not ready to award yet, but hopefully at the April meeting we'll be able to ready to award that.
Okay, Mr. Wooten, you're doing great. And here, again, positive things on this agenda. We want to highlight shooting range. That's going to be for educational purposes for kids and for law enforcement, whomever, groups that would come in and shoot. with supervision. Courthouse project, you're going to see the whole building here. That's going to include the administration building and the new construction upstairs on the deck. So a lot of things are happening with that. Very positive. And we always want to talk about water lines. If we're putting water lines in the ground, we're helping people who have bad wells. We're building, one day we'll have our countywide water system, maybe, possibly. We know we'll have a water filtration plant down on the lake. So we're thinking long-term as a board. And we're excited about the growth that we're seeing. And at this time, let's go ahead and move to our next item on our appointment schedule, and that would be another positive thing. We have the distinguished Mr. Conley with us today, Randall Conley. He is a Dallas Cowboy football fan for the record, right, Mr. Conley?
No, sir. Pittsburgh Steelers, all the way.
Well, anyway, Mr. Conley is our director of our newly formed McDowell Transit Department. So, Mr. Conley, the floor is yours, sir. We look forward to hearing good things about our up-and-coming transit program.
Thank you, and thanks again for having me tonight. It's always a pleasure to come before the board. Tonight I'm coming to the board with the lease agreement. McDowell County, between McDowell County Transit and Foothills Industries. In search of a new location to operate the McDowell County Transit system, the fine folks out at Foothills offered us a portion of their building, which we'll be able to operate from in this next coming year. This space includes 4 offices, 20 parking spaces for the vans, which is gated and secured. Also includes utilities such as heating, cooling, water, housekeeping, building and grounds maintenance, and insurance, to a total annual cost of $9,535. We will look to be moving in this space as soon as possible, depending upon y'all's approval on the lease. Us becoming public transportation service, we are required to be able to bill Medicaid clients through NC Tracks, which they will conduct an on-site site visit with us from the location we'll be operating from, which is Foothills, if approved, on March 27th. We have been allocated a little bit of money through a DSS transportation line to go ahead and get some startups, which I include phone hookups and internet and all that good stuff, electrical hookups. Everything's already kind of set in place, kind of desk-wise out there. So this will be it'll be a very easy move-in, hopefully. But like I said, with March 27th on the approach, with about 2 weeks, we kind of need to make a decision on the lease pretty soon, so that way we can go ahead and move forward with the hookups and all that. And again, soon I'd like to probably start transitioning over from the DSS building to Foothills within the next week or so.
Okay, Randall's moving.
Yes.
Literally.
Good things, though. Freeing up space for Lisa, that's a positive for you over there, isn't it, Lisa? You'll gain about 4 or 5 offices. Is that right, Randall?
Yes, sir.
And Randall, you can't beat a $794 a month lease to have that gated space for the vehicles,
No.
which is a requirement by the state to have when you
And
have
the
a
van
transit
size
department.
parking spaces is excellent.
And that's a very nice building, too, you'll be going into, and a good location. Sounds good. Comments or questions by board members for Mr. Conley?
I'm proud to see the transit system firing up and working. It's been something that's been important to me as well as the board.
Yes, and like I said, getting out to this new location is going to be another next step, big movement for us, and taking off to reach July 1.
And we appreciate what you're doing personally to see that
Thank you,
happen.
thank you. And also Lisa, she's been very instrumental in this process, and like last week, we was running around all over the place, weren't we, Lisa? But we're just getting done, yes, sir.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the rent.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign.
Thank you.
Mr. Conley, you got your charge.
All right, thank you. I appreciate everything.
Good seeing you. Hey,
Yes,
we
sir.
appreciate the work you're doing.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, let's go to item D under old business. This would be the Catawba River Greenway update. Mr. Wood, go ahead, sir. Lead us out.
Yes, sir. we've not had this on the agenda for a couple of months. We've been working, again, behind the scenes, trying to get this project ready to bid. You know, there's some frustration by folks, you know, we want to have construction underway. Part of the delay that, while we haven't been out to bid on this project yet, is we had the additional state funding that was approved in the most recent budget bill, and that has taken some time to work through that process with the grant agency. And so we wanted to make sure we were bidding one nice project, one bidder, one contractor to do the work. So we've held back a little bit on that original county parks section. So at the end of the day, we'll bid out almost a mile of Greenway. We'll have the park amenities that we've talked about before. And so it'll be a really nice spot, really nice construction when it's all said and done. The state will be on site April 3rd to do a visit. And after that, they will give us the green light to sign a contract. So in the meantime, we will have the design completed and bidding underway. To that point, you have an engineering agreement attached. This is for the additional section, the 2 private properties, and the section going back towards the high school. So the original contract you approved last summer just had the old County River Park. This adds about half a mile of section, gets us to Conley Road and possibly beyond to get a connection back towards the original Phase 1. So this is an instance of taking some time and, you know, having a better project at the end of the day when it's all bid out. So we would ask that you approve this contract so we can keep moving and have a nice bid out project.
Okay, comments, questions? Here again, something very positive. The EMS folk, y'all will be, I know you're glad to see trails, because if people are exercising and walking, that means less cost for y'all, right? Hopefully, that's the way it should work, right? But anyway, so we appreciate the work the board's been doing. And we would be very wrong not to mention the McDowell Trails group. That group has done a lot of work, and they've been a real spark plug with the whole trails process. And also, it's good to have our partners involved. The city has partnered with the county and given money on county sections. The county has given money to the city for their sections. So here again, things get done by working together, and McDowell County does that. And we're proud of y'all, and we're proud of our partnerships that we have as a board. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve the engineer proposal.
Second.
Okay, discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, let's go ahead and take care of item E under old business, and this is the universal property covenants and grant application. Mr. Wood, go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. So last month you had a first reading for the property covenants for the universal property. And again, the county about 5 years ago purchased 350 acres there where the universal building is located. A good portion of that is essentially a mountain, not very usable, but a very large section is usable, and we've talked with Mr. Abernathy and that engineer with some of the future planning. At the screen, I'm pointing at the screen. You've seen that plan. This would sort of go in hand with that planning process. Last month, we had a public hearing for economic development incentive for the business going into the building. Mr. Abernathy also mentioned there's a possibility of maybe the same business constructing a building on our property. And so we'd like to kind of get some of these things in place before that property is carved off. And so again, what you have in front of you are covenants that would tie to any property that is carved off from the county tract. It would limit the use of that property primarily for industrial/commercial. As written, it would essentially prohibit the use by nonprofits that weren't in an economic development vein. And so it would really be business tax-paying minded in the implication. City of Marion has adjacent property. Mr. Abernathy presented this to them at their most recent meeting. Had a very favorable response about placing restrictions on their property that may be tied in together. So we've tried to, with the engineer really guiding it, we've tried to look at the city and county property really as one large tract of land. There's been a lot of cooperation, like you talked about, on this as well, to make sure that use is cohesive. There's the college land identified on the north side of the road, but the south side has essentially been sort of deemed as business use. And so tying it all together with these covenants just seemed to make sense. So Mr. Coates has looked at these. Again, you've had last month and this month to look at these. These are essentially what is in place at the county's industrial park off of Highway 221, where I guess this ABB is now. It used to be Baldor and Foothills Industries. And so a lot of this is maybe copy and pasted from that, but it has worked there and has guided that to be a nice development. There's been other county properties where there's been development where there weren't covenants, and so it made sense to try to get this in place. So any questions about the covenants? I should point out that the commissioners and the city council for the city property have authority over any variances. So if someone wanted to come in and change a building material that's not allowed or use that's not allowed, it would have to come back before the commissioners. I don't know if I'm with anything relevant.
Best project I ever worked on.
Good, that's an endorser from the county.
You know, that universal property,
Yeah.
home run.
Yes, sir. And you know, Fred, from your background, your profession, responsible development is very important in the early stages of anything as you move forward to have that in play already. And the community college, who is a partner in that area, we meet once a month, the county and the city, the county and with the trustees and the school board, and so all parties are aware of what's going on out there. A lot of different eyes are on what's happening with this land and this information we have here tonight, and we've gotten no real negative feedback. Correct, Ashley? From anybody?
Not from those agencies.
Okay. Other comments, questions? What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion, we approve the universal property covenants and also the grant application.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Okay.
And I've got one more item. You don't have it in your packet, and so there's really not an action item, and we don't always ask for board approval to apply for grants. When there is a match, we always do, but there is an instance, a new grant that's come forth in the last couple of months that's sort of in the development stages, where we are looking at providing additional utilities on this property. So right now, there's a sewer line that is coming from the Universal building that goes to the city system. There's a water line that the county recently put in to serve that building. But as far as the property itself that is there, there's not existing utilities. So without having an application in front of you, we would like sort of a green light, assuming there's no matches, to apply for grant funding. It just goes without saying sometimes that's what we like to do, but we are working on that to fully develop that site and remove any funding burden from the county. So.
Anytime you get free money, we're all for it. What's the pleasure of the board?
Go for it.
Make a motion, we approve.
Second.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay. Let's see, we got William's got a whole group right here. Let's go ahead. I'll ask our attorney a question. Is it legally permissible to move an appointment up 5 minutes early?
I don't hear any objection.
Okay.
As long as it's
Mr.
not a
Kehler,
hearing.
the floor is yours, sir. I always appreciate,
5 minutes.
we always appreciate the work Wiiliam does and his crowd. We've got some of the finest, and I'll say this, anywhere some of the finest men and women in the state of North Carolina working across that road. And so, Wiiliam, we appreciate Greg, all y'all do, everybody. The floor is yours, sir.
Appreciate the couple extra minutes. We'll make good use of it. As the PowerPoint is coming up, we asked Mr. Wooten for us to be able to present tonight the 2017 report. I can tell you that I'm extremely proud of the work that staff has done, but I think what you're going to see in this report is the years of planning that has went into the different projects at EMS specifically. Here at the beginning, we are starting to see the return, specifically our community care paramedic program, and I want to highlight that in its impacts on our operation as well as the favorable impacts towards our budget and any future requests. So we'll jump into this. I think the picture describes we're very diverse department in what we are doing, from EMS to emergency management to communications to the fire marshal's office to community paramedics. And get this moving here. Starting out in EMS, really important slide. Our volume was down. 911 calls for service for EMS ambulances last year was down nearly 4%. This is the third year in a row we have seen a decline in 911 calls for service for EMS ambulances. To my knowledge, New Hanover and our county are the only two counties that are experiencing a decline in 911 volume. We specifically relate that to the work of our community paramedics in managing high utilizers. I think it's really important for everyone to understand what this decline means to the county. Is we could no longer sustain, we were adding ambulances and personnel during these years, and that growth there, had we sustained that growth of 3 to 5% each year, would have meant a decision by the Board of Commissioners. Our request would have came for another ambulance, and that cost on a yearly or an annual basis is nearly $500,000. So the impact of that is huge in the work that the community paramedics are doing, and I'll speak to that more in just a second. Our transport volume was down last year as well, a little over 4%. That's going to fluctuate. I think that we've pretty well hit a soft landing on our transports, and depending on our inter-facilities, that number is going to fluctuate as we continue on. Fortunately, this number did come down. The transports from the local hospital up to Asheville, this was a number that I talked to you a number of times. We could not sustain that growth that we were seeing. Unfortunately, that has leveled off at this point. It leveled off at the end of 2017. We were on track to have another record year, but towards the fall and early winter, we started seeing a decline in that volume that helped us come in slightly below where we were at in 2016. So what does this decrease for calls of service, decrease for transports? The overall mileage on our vehicles were down 6.5%. That's about 1/5 of the life of a new ambulance, which certainly helps our fleet, the condition of our fleet, which was moving in a direction that was concerning due to the out-of-county transfers that we were doing, and you can see we had heavy volume and mileage during these years. Our loaded miles were down as well. Those are miles with patients on board. Decrease in miles equals a decrease in fuel that is utilized. So we're starting to see the effects of this program, and I'm really happy. So what does staging? For the public, what does staging mean? Staging means if both of our Marion ambulances are out, we have to move a ambulance from Nebo or Old Fort into the central part of the county to have it strategically placed. The more our ambulances are available, if we're managing high utilizers, we have ambulances available for true emergencies. Therefore, our staging is down. Each staging call costs money. So certainly glad to see that. Helicopter usage is down. One of the first projects that our administration did back in 2007 when we changed was decrease the amount of helicopter usage. We'd done an internal study. It's important we just didn't do this without data driving the decision. This was driven upon an internal research project that we did, showing that most locations in McDowell, studying the times of a helicopter, it was faster to go by ground on the interstate. We do use it, but it's reserved for those very rural outlying areas, and we track that monthly and look at the data. This is data-driven. This isn't an opinion of how we run our helicopter usage, but it's data-driven. Decreasing call volume, managing of high utilizers also brings a decrease in the number of minutes that we are without ambulance coverage. When we see no EMS coverage, that means that all of our ambulances are busy and we are calling back personnel or calling back administrators. So that will also impact a decrease in our overtime. I'm extremely proud of the work that our staff has done from our paramedic division. Total calls, you can see, apology on that, total calls versus total complaints. The complaints are running on the bottom, and I think it's an indication of the care and the compassion and the commitment our employees have on a daily basis. We're really low on the complaints when based upon the total calls for service. I'm not going to read the accomplishments, but be pleased again from the grant funding that we incorporated last year or we obtained last year to all the different enhancements that we did. Extremely proud of the work our staff done. Probably I'm most proud of the safety record that we had a total culture of safety change in 2010. We are working towards 8 years without a lost time incident in our 1 million hour award. This is a historic milestone for our agency, and I would rate us at the top of any rural agency of a safety record in the nation right now. That goes upon our attendance at state and national conferences and conversations with other agencies. Moving along into the community paramedic program, just to give a little history to those that are in attendance tonight or maybe watching at home, this was a program grant funded 2013 through Healthy Places, an initiative of the Cape B. Reynolds Charitable Trust. Our goal is to manage high utilizers. There are individuals or patients in our community that have lack of social support, lack of family support, and that are the most vulnerable of our population. Some of these folks may call EMS 10 to 15 times a month. A lot of times what we find is these people have no way to get their prescriptions picked up if they go to the emergency department, so it's a vicious cycle that just repeats itself. Maybe they have no primary care physician, lack of transportation, and you see us integrate our community paramedics with all the community resources in the community to try to meet the individual needs of each of these patients. The community paramedics did 2,216 calls for service last year, but a lot of these are self-initiated visits, so we're visiting these patients before they call 911. We did over 1,200 wellness visits. I've got a duplicate slide, I apologize. We did over 1,200 wellness visits. We did phone follow-ups a lot of times, a simple phone call to check on these folks to see how they're doing. We no longer dispatch an ambulance to someone who has fallen, who is not injured. We'll send a community paramedic to help them up out of the floor, but also assess the condition to try to prevent a repeat fall. So it's a very integrated, this is really a program that needs its own presentation to highlight some of the advancements. But this keeps the workload off of 911 ambulances for non-emergent conditions and saves them for the more acute calls. I want to highlight just a couple things real quick on some charts. This is one high utilizer, and while I do have financial information on here, everything is de-identified so that none of these patients can be identified off of these charts. But I think it's very important for us to highlight, while we're talking about financial data here and the impacts to the county, our number one overriding objective in our department is to ensure that we improve the condition and the quality of life for these patients. But everything does go hand in hand. This one patient, prior to the community paramedic intervening, was a net loss to the county of over $28,000. When you look at the blue lines, these are calls for service, and the red lines are where the community paramedic got involved. There is a very direct correlation to the number of community paramedic visits versus the number of 911 calls for service. And we know through performance review of community paramedicine, if our community paramedics slack off of patients that are high utilizers, before they get them completely managed, you will see the 911 calls for service override the number of community paramedic visits. I've got a couple examples of those. This is huge. This is direct cost avoidance to the county because these patients are either uninsured or they may have a very small payer source where we're losing money on each call. Here's another one. This patient This patient here had nearly 23 visits in year 2013. We put a community paramedic on this late 2013 as the program started, and you can see that the call volume got driven down, but once the community paramedic let up, the patient presents itself back into the EMS system. So from a performance standpoint, that's imperative for our community paramedics to stay on top of these patients. Another clear example of how we can drive down utilization. So I think it's also important for folks to understand what causes a high utilizer. There's so many things. Our community paramedics use a holistic approach to try to understand what is causing this patient to go to the emergency department every time they have an ailment. Most of the time it's for non-emergent conditions. What we find is a lot of people are elderly, living by themselves, have no family, no one to check on them. The lady calls 911 on Monday night for difficulty breathing, goes to the hospital, gets an antibiotic prescription, is discharged home. Someone, family, takes her back home. The pharmacy's closed. She has no transportation. Condition sits there, it festers for 2 more days. Well, she calls EMS again on Wednesday night, same condition. Paramedics go in, they see the prescription that hasn't been filled. This is the type of stuff, it's common sense approach, making an intervention early and driving down high utilization. We should have been doing this 20 years ago. Fortunately, for those that may not know it, McDowell was the first rural agency in the county to do community, or in the state to do community paramedicine. In the second county, Wake was the first to implement a CP program. Here's some more charts. I'm going to go quickly through these. This one patient had 97 transports to the emergency department by EMS over 22 months. Probably all of us in this room have not been to the ER 97 times. And I say that respectively, but that's how much assistance these folks need and how in-depth and complex these cases can get and how important our community paramedics are. Last year, year 4 total cost avoidance just to McDowell County by us managing uninsured, underinsured patients was nearly $120,000 to McDowell County. And that is the bad debt that is not going to show up for you guys to write off where we're managing these patients. Prevented 421 EMS and ER visits. When you look at the program over the course of 4 years, here's the cost avoidance to McDowell County. $367,000. You may ask, where do we get that number from? We're looking at the Medicaid cost report, average cost per transport, which is a validated number in North Carolina based upon each patient's payer source. Over 4 years, 1,575 ER EMS preventions, transports. Very quickly, mental health diversion. McDowell is one of 12 agencies in North Carolina. If you have a mental health crisis, instead of us taking you to the emergency department, which we know is not the most appropriate place, it is not the most appropriate cost, and it is definitely not at the most appropriate time, we're going to get you linked to a mobile or to a behavioral health professional, either through mobile crisis coming to your house, or we're transporting you in the community paramedic vehicle to our local behavioral health clinic. This is a huge advancement for behavioral health patients. It is proven to be safe, and it meets all of the rights. We looked at the first 42 diversions that we done when this program initiated. Most of these patients were uninsured, and we had additional cost avoidance of nearly $18,000. And if these people would have been transported on the ambulance to the ED and not seen the mental health professional for hours or days,
Which backs up your ED department.
That's correct. So it's a snowball effect, but we're definitely moving that program in the right direction. Just a couple stats of interest very quickly. You can see the breakdown on the ages. I can tell you a concerning trend that we're seeing is the pediatric behavioral health patients that we're encountering just in the last 90 days is up. I certainly hope that trend doesn't continue, but that's a snapshot of what we're seeing. 40% were uninsured. When you look at our community paramedic program, our vision forward, and I'm just going to talk about, for time's sake, the triage project. It's our belief EMS is totally transforming from the way it was designed in the 70s. but we have got to continue driving efficiency within the system, because even now, every patient that calls 911 doesn't need a $250,000 ambulance and 2 paramedics for certain conditions. The vision is to triage these things in the call in the 911 center, and have community paramedics in SUVs that can respond to non-emergent calls, have the ability to do a telemed visit to a primary care physician or a mid-level provider and take care of that problem in the field without a transport to the emergency department. That's forthcoming. I think that's 3, 5, maybe even longer, but there is a vision for this program, and I'm proud to say McDowell's on the cutting edge of transforming EMS. The other thing that's important is at the state and national level, the reimbursement structure is being set up to support community paramedicine, and we're already in line and up and going for that to be implemented into our program for reimbursement. All right, 911 communications, as we move along here. Here's total calls and then total dispatches, total text to 911. Our calls are slightly down on the administrative side. They're not on the 911 side, and I think that's an important thing to point out, is our 911 calls were essentially there was no growth, but there was no decline either. Total incoming calls, this is a breakdown. This will be in your packet. This will be a breakdown of the number of lines coming in. Text to 911, those that are watching or in the audience, McDowell accepts text to 911. Next Gen 911 is on the way, where you can essentially live stream to 911 and send pictures. It's going to be an interesting integration into the center.
It's going to be interesting.
Total dispatches was slightly down in 2017. Here's a breakdown of our law enforcement dispatches. Amberly Buff is our 911 manager. She's here tonight, does an outstanding job in the center managing that on a daily basis. Fire department dispatch by the departments. I think this is something I want to hit on really quick in the work that staff has done. This impacts every person in this audience as far as your homeowner's insurance rating, because the insurance or the fire rating in each fire district is based upon, part of it is based upon the communications and how well we're performing and the infrastructure that we have built in. So when you take a look at this, state average is 7. I need a lesson on this remote here. The state average is 7 to 8. Our last inspection in 2014 was 7.5. Our very last inspection that we had, we were at 9.13, and I can promise you we're working to boost beyond 9.13. There are certain things as far as our staffing levels and our dispatch circuits that we're working on, but this is a huge improvement, and certainly is a benefit to the taxpayers of this county as far as the score and what your fire rating is in each district. Emergency management, total calls 786 last year. The breakdown is there. Certainly weather related. Emergency management is a coordinating agency, so it's no surprise. Assist other agency is one of our biggest call types. Fire investigations, plenty of outdoor or wildfires that were investigated in 2017. 911 addressing, that department does an outstanding job at road sign maintenance. The green signs is a responsibility of our department that we stay on top of. And with that, I did not recognize them at the start, and I want to make sure I do that. Adrian Jones is the Deputy Director of EMS, does an outstanding job for us. Craig Walker is the Fire Marshal and Deputy Director of EM and 911. But the administrative team does an outstanding job each day in driving the vision. And before I recognize our interns, very quickly, I'll take any questions or comments on the data that we presented.
Community care paramedic program, it's funded for how long?
July 2013. I'm sorry.
What's the expiration? When's it expire? The funding for it?
The total, It's grant funded through June of this year, and you'll be seeing the plan in the budget.
Okay.
And there's a very structured plan that is coming. It's not all in one hit, it's a phase-in.
We're very proud of you guys, and it makes us proud when we're somewhere else with other commissioners, and I mean, it's brought up by other counties. They're always commending us on our emergency services here, and we really appreciate it. It makes us look good.
Best in the state's all we've got to say.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead and introduce Wiiliam.
Yeah, I asked Mr. Wooten, too, if we could recognize our McDowell High School internship program. I think it's a very important program that we're doing. It's a partnership. Miss Mary Finley from McDowell High School CTE program is here tonight. Commissioner McPeter serves as one of the instructors and the chief of the EMS division there at the high school. And I've got some additional staff, but what we've seen is we initially had we were affiliated with the Boy Scout program and had an Explorer program that took in folks from the age of 8 to 14 and brought them in once a month and allowed them to explore the career of EMS in a controlled classroom setting. We quickly realized in the competitive job market that we're seeing is we have got to essentially take care and put people in the pipeline and get them job ready. So what better organization than to partner with the high school and the Public Safety Academy. We brought 3 interns aboard this year. We have Desiree McLaughlin, if you'll stand up, Shayna Townsend, and Andrew Riggs. Both of these attend McDowell High School, have went through the EMT program, have or will be testing for their EMT certification. And what this program allows is we assign them a set mentor or a preceptor at EMS. I've got Jessica Metcalf, one of the preceptors. Desiree is assigned to paramedic Metcalf, and they come after school or on weekends and ride the EMS ambulance. Now, what's unique about this program is they are going through the same field training evaluation program. It's called FTEP. It's a nationally validated field training program that we implemented at the agency, and they go through the same program as interns as our new employees would. Now, it's designed to, once they graduate high school, then they have the opportunity to apply for part-time employment, and then we see them through paramedic school, and the end goal is for them to come back as a full-time paramedic. I've said for years, this is like trying to manage a professional baseball team. Unless we get the minor league teams where they need to be, then we're going to fail long-term. So that's our overriding objective. Mr. Riggs is in a different uniform, as you can see, but he has successfully transitioned out of the intern program. He's met the age requirement, the training requirements, and is now working as a part-time EMT basic alongside a paramedic on the ambulance after school or on weekends. So we're very excited at the partnership. I want to thank Mary, Commissioner McPeters, and all the ones who have supported this. We have the application period open now. It's open until April 2nd, where we will select 6 interns for the upcoming school year, and I hope this is a program that we see repeated year after year.
And we want to say our board is so proud of our interns right here. He said that's the minor leagues, but y'all will be in the major leagues for long. And we appreciate, you got to love it to do it, right? And you got a desire to help people, and that's evident. And we just want to say thanks, because we're so glad we've got people coming in that are going through the stringent requirements, as Williams has already stated, and are ready to step in and assist people in McDowell County. So hats off to y'all. Great job. Okay, let's move to our next appointment. This is a public hearing concerning the watershed ordinance, and we have Mr. Harmon. You're here tonight to speak that, our Assistant County Manager. And at this time, pursuant to General Statute 153A-323, I'll declare the board in the public hearing setting. So, Mr. Harmon, go ahead, sir.
I'm here tonight to present to you the updated watershed ordinance and the watershed map. This is part of the Division of Water Quality's requirements to have Lake James considered for watershed 4. The map has already been preliminary approved by the state. They've sent us their changes. Those changes have been made, and that layer is now up on the county GIS. What we need to do now is send the watershed ordinance with your approval on the Division of Water Quality for their final approval, and we will then have a watershed 4.
Okay, Mr. Wooten, anything you need to add?
No, sir, just need public comment, and then we can keep going with it.
We'll start on my right. Does anybody on my right wish to speak concerning the watershed ordinance? If you do, just stand up, let us know, and you come up and speak. Okay, nobody? How about on my left?
One question, where is it available for the public to look at?
We have a copy in the clerk's office to look at.
It's also on the county's GIS site. There's a layer for the new watershed. It's called Watershed, Lake James Protected and Lake James Critical.
Okay. All right. No one else wishes to speak? It's a pleasure, board.
Motion to come out of public hearing.
Okay, got a second discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, Mr. Wooten, what's the direction? What are you requesting here?
Request approval of the amended ordinance, please.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Move we approve the ordinance.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. All right. Ron, thanks, sir. Now, let's move to our next item. Well, let's finish some new business first. Let's go to item A under new business. This would be the Spalding Road Greenway update. Mr. Wooten, go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir, and we call this Greenway different things. Some people probably call it the YMCA Greenway or the Hospital Greenway, so we just put Spalding Road. This is the Greenway that was built probably about 5 or 8 years ago in the vicinity of the YMCA and the hospital, the medical park, et cetera. We had noticed a couple of months ago we were having some erosion around one of the footbridges. Before we could get contractors out, engineers, et cetera, it got very worse almost overnight, literally overnight in one instance. And so we did close that bridge. It's the one closest to the parking area there on Spalding Road, as closest to the senior center. So we've closed that bridge and put up barriers and that sort of thing. People were still walking across it, so we actually took out the section because it was really not safe, liability concern. And so we have met on site with the original project engineer. It's going to take quite a bit of extensive stream work to restore that stream and to repair and rebuild that abutment on that bridge. So we're asking for authorization to proceed with the design, not asking to spend money on construction yet. We'll bring that back, but we would like to keep that going so we can get that repaired as soon as possible.
Okay, comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we allow staff to proceed with the work and repair cost on this.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Wooten, let's move to item B, administrative items, and we got about 5 with several sub-items, so go ahead, sir.
Sure. Okay, the first item, and I think it helps for the minutes if we break all these out separately. The first is a leak adjustment for the account copied for the Nebo water system. That's for $160.27.
Motion approved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Wooten.
Okay, the next item, Commissioner Brown and I attended a training session, for lack of a better term, about a year ago as guests of the Board of Elections. It was maybe a demonstration is a better word, for new election equipment. The existing equipment we have is no longer supported by the vendor, starting to break down, and really the point that it's no longer being serviced is really pressing the need to replace it. There is one approved vendor in North Carolina. It's ES&S. You see the quote attached. Election staff has forwarded those quotes and asked for that equipment to be purchased. We would recommend financing that purchase. And again, you really don't have an option. I hate to say that. It's a single bidder is approved by the state, and it's something that counties statewide have an issue with, but there's only one approved in the state. It's really unfortunate. But you do have that attached. You have bids from several banks, and the low bid for that purchase was from First Citizens, 3.19% for a period of 4 years, and the total amount financed would be $135,014 for that equipment.
Okay, comments, questions?
Absolutely no way we can go outside the state of North Carolina because it requires to be within.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous. Sounds like somebody's scratching somebody's back. For 100 years, we ain't changing it now.
I guess it's the state board that sets that.
A bunch of morons.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion we approve financing and purchasing of the election equipment.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Okay, Mr. Wood, go ahead, sir.
The next item also involves financing. Randall Thomas, our Public Works Director, called last week. We operate a cardboard baler at our Public Works facility. It is older than the young people that were here a minute ago. We have spent, he has been in the position almost 2 years, and we have spent several $1,000s on maintaining it. And it's at the end of its life. It did make it longer than the election equipment, but it is not wise to keep investing our limited dollars into something that's 20 years old. He is still getting quotes for equipment, and so this is a little bit different. This is similar to what we did with the courthouse project a couple of months ago, where we're asking you to approve a reimbursement resolution, and so that allows us to go buy the equipment and then be reimburse ourselves with the loan proceeds. Again, if you approve. What we're doing right now is not sustainable. We're hauling loose cardboard down to Conover, and that costs us money. We're getting nothing on the revenue. It's very time consuming, and it's just going to eat us alive in cost. So we would ask that you approve this. We don't have financing yet. Again, that will be next month. We will ask to be reimbursed. The maximum amount that we're asking that you approve on that reimbursement resolution is $75,000. So again, Mr. Thomas deals with very expensive equipment. You'll have a request in the upcoming budget for a piece of machinery that's over $200,000. It's just the nature of the machines he operates there. And so we are trying to obtain different quotes, but the ones we've seen are higher than this one. So we would ask that you approve that resolution.
Okay, comments, questions? It's the pleasure of the board.
Make a motion you approve up to $75,000 reimbursement.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Wheaton.
Okay, the last item before the amendments, you have a resolution requesting the trade-in of numerous firearms for the sheriff's office. So they are allowed to trade in any firearms on hand towards the purchase of new firearms. So you have a list in your packet. There's a mix of confiscated firearms. So there may be firearms from China or who knows where in that mix, but also firearms that we've purchased over the years that are no longer serviceable. So the vendor will take those as a credit. You just have to approve the resolution approving the disposal of the old firearms.
Okay, comments, questions?
Move we approve the resolution.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Mr. Wooten?
Okay, and finally, to close out this item, we do have several amendments, and I'll just go through, and please stop me if you have any questions. GF 36 appropriates cable revenue for the cable TV fund. Again, we received cable revenue based on people's subscriptions to help pay for the cameras in this room and the staffing and that sort of thing. GF 37 appropriates revenue and transfers between line items and emergency services. GF 38 transfers between line items to cover the January cost of living adjustment and also self-insurance costs. Those are employee costs. GF 39 records the loan for the Chevrolet Equinox vehicles at DSS that you approved last month. GF 49 appropriates additional revenue received at DSS. And 911 F3 transfers funds between line items and appropriates fund balance in the 911 fund.
Okay, comments, questions?
Motion we approve GF 36 to GF 40 and 911 F3.
Second.
Second, discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay. Mr. Wooten, we have covered that now, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Let's move to our 6:15 appointment. This is the Watershed Dam overview. We have Mr. Crawley with us tonight. Mr. Crawley, welcome to the boardroom, sir. Glad to have you. And at this time, pursuant to General Statute 153A-323, I will declare the board in a public hearing setting. And he must have needs of our computer.
Absolutely.
All right.
It's all I ever needs, a computer. So, and I just want to say to whoever, by the way, is doing the minutes, we're going to be using the word damn a lot, so just get used to that. It's just going to be something we use. But my name is Evan Crawley. I was the soil and water technician here with McDowell County, and I came back to give a quick overview of our watershed dams that we have in McDowell County. I also worked with Stephen Banner, and he is on the federal side, and he's worked a whole lot more and knows a whole lot more than I do. So I'm glad he's sitting here in case y'all have any questions. And also, we have Craig Walker, and he is on our Water Protection Board. And if you have any questions, too, he said he would answer them all as well. He just knows it all. So let's see here. If you go, it should be the, go on down, watershed. Go down one.
You notice he said
County.
that was in past tense. He has moved to another county, but we couldn't work him in last month, but he did agree to come back. So he's volunteering his time right now. So.
Well, we appreciate that.
Sure.
You got to activate that PowerPoint.
Just that. All right, I can do it. So, just as a show of hands from our board,
Bottom area.
how many of y'all know that we do have 9 water control structures?
Started. He'll do it. So it was on the very slideshow. Right there. There you go.
So, how many of y'all know that we have 9 water control structures in McDowell County?
We do now.
You do now. And of those, how many of y'all know that we are completely responsible physically and everything else for these dams? If something happens, we're the ones that have to fix it. It's not up to the landowners, we are the landowners. And that's because we have easements. And I'm going to go over all this stuff and let y'all see pictures of everything that I have and that we have out there in the field. So, the history. So back in the 1900s, early 1900s, McDowell and the surrounding counties had issue with flooding. And it's not just us that have these water control structures. It's, Rutherford County has 19, is that right? 19. We just have 9. We got really lucky on that one. People like Alexander County and maybe Iredell County have some as well. And what the federal government decided to do in the 50s and 60s is come in and build these water control structures to help prevent flooding. And it really did work. What we had back in the day, and you can see these were pictures from the office, but these were fields that were flooded completely. You couldn't get your car across. These would pick up houses and send them right down the river, creek, wherever it was. And you would come home and your house wasn't there, and that was not a good day. So what they decided to do is put these structures in. And once built, the federal government gave the property rights and easements over to the counties to control because they did not want them. And, I mean, that's just something we see every day. So, McDowell, our priority watershed is Muddy Creek, and that's where we see our 9 watershed structures. And the benefits of that, though, is that it has reduced and prevented flooding in Muddy Creek, and it's been a huge help, over the years. It's improved farmlands in the county, and it's also allowed Nebo, Dysersville, and Glenwood to expand. We've added schools, houses, developments, and things like that, whereas one time that you couldn't have put anything out there just because it flooded so much. So they're really good, and sort of how they work is we have these things called risers, and these are the actual old pictures that I found in the office. These are the old risers that they put in, and if you've ever fished on top of them, you would know. I don't know if anybody has ever sat on top of one of these things, but what they are, these huge concrete risers that pretty much control the flow, and you have, let's see, right here is your base as it goes up, and then you have a pipe right here in the bottom, and then in front of that pipe, we call this thing, you don't see it on this, but it's called a gate, and it has a stem that goes all the way up from there to the top, and you spin it, and it raises up the gate or lowers it, and it helps us control the amount of water that's in our dams. And across of that, you have these things called spillways, and the spillways are a little bit lower than the top of the dam. The dam crests up, and it allows water to go up and around instead of going over, because if it goes over, that's called a breach, and it starts to erode all that stuff, and then you have a very serious problem, and then you have to call in all kinds of people, and we don't ever want to do that. So that's why they put those in. So as you can see next, the riser there in the back, you have the pipe that comes out, and they're at a fairly controlled angle, and it helps that water to push out all the water at a controlled amount so that your inputs equal your outputs, and it helps it to stay at a very normal level. But whenever the water rises, it helps it to push more out over time or over that so it doesn't flood. But let's see what else happens. Go back down. This is what the earthen mound or the dam looks like. Each one of these have one of these, and you have on this side you would have your riser, and on this side you would have your outlet drain. So what these look like all together is this, and this is before they add water to it. And usually the water level is about right there on those watershed dams, but as you'll see, some of them are a little bit different. But we do have a watershed protection board, and they are oversight on all the dams, and so are the staff in the field. Me and Stephen would have been your people to go to if you had any questions or anything. And we also have 3 board members. Neil Brackett is chairman, Craig Walker, thankfully he's here again, and Bob Yutzy, and they all control and go out and look for spot checks and things like that as well. But this is the general area. You have one way up here in Nebo, but it's a part of the watershed, the Muddy Creek watershed, and actually Muddy Creek splits, and it goes north Muddy Creek and then just regular Muddy Creek. And one's down 226, and the other one's out 221. So to go through these, I'm going to give you a little bit of, these are the pictures we took just a few weeks ago, and I'm going to go over how much or when they were built and how much water they actually hold. And so this is Ashworth. And I know that y'all been talking about Ashworth a lot because you're going to be putting a shooting range behind it. So if all that stuff that goes with it, we're in control of what's below it in this dam. So I think your shooting range should be right in this area. But that was made in 1971, and its normal holding capacity is about 28 million gallons. And that's actually the normal. And then it is also classified as a high hazard dam. This is one that the state has to come out and inspect every single year. This one and 2 more. But usually they only get inspected every 5 years by the state. And that's a really good thing because we don't always want them out there. So the next one is Lemon Tree. This is right across the road from our Ashworth one. And this is another high hazard dam. They come out, and it was built in 1985, and it holds 25 million gallons. The next one is our Anderson one. This one's out New Hope Way in Glenwood, and it was built in 1976, and it holds 56 million gallons. This is in Huntsville. This is behind the gate in Huntsville. I don't know if y'all know where that is, but this is actually a really nice one, and it's one of our smaller ones. It was built in 1968, holds 10 million gallons, and then we have the one in Nebo, and it's by itself up there, and it was built in 1964. It's one of our high hazard dams that they have to come out and look at. It holds 110 million gallons, so that's a big one, and they had to completely make every bit of it. They had to slope the landscape just for that. So if y'all can imagine how much work that went into that. This is Cook Dam. This is out on Tatertown Loop. This one it holds 25 million gallons and was made in 1963. See, the next one's Louder Dam. This is our only dry structure. There shouldn't be any water in this one, and we don't ever want to see it fill up with water, but what it's supposed to do is just to slowly, there's supposed to just be a small creek, but now it's starting to fill up a little bit because of floods and stuff. But anyway, this is our only dry one that we have, and it is out in Dysersville. We have another one with Boy Scout. If y'all have ever been out to the Boy Scout place, there's two. They have the big one. We have the small one. We are in control of that. We have the easement to it, and we can be out there if we need to be. But the completion date was in 1961, holds 53 million gallons. Then lastly, we have Wilson, and this one, and you can see there's a difference between these and the other ones. These are actually in the water completely and submerged, as the other ones are. They have a little bit of stand above, but they were just made differently, so there's nothing wrong with these. But this one holds 10 million gallons and was made in 1961. So, on a normal day, the dams are holding close to 320 million gallons. But during a heavy thunderstorm or a storm altogether, they can be holding from 1 billion gallons to 2 billion gallons, which is a lot of water altogether. And one of the things that we were taught in school is that if one of your higher ones go out, then it's going to flood down, and it's going to take out the next, and then it's going to take out the next one, if it happens. So, that's one of the things why we've made these emergency action plans, and that's something that Craig has worked on before, is what do you do whenever something does happen, to get these people out? How fast do you have to get out there, and what do you have to do to remove people so that nobody drowns? So we have these for each one of these, and this is a big concern for us because these are liabilities for the county. This is something that we're holding on for us. So, and also, my final point, just to get through it, is the county is fiscally responsible for these dams. Anything that happens, all the maintenance, everything that we have to do, usually that money is channeled into our office. And we do everything from putting out lime and fertilizer to cutting it, or whatever we have to do, keeping horses off at times, keeping people off. If people come across it with their cars during a chase, I don't know if y'all remember that, but there was a guy that come across it with a car on a high-speed chase, and they decided to really mess it up, so we had to go fix that. But things like that happen all the time, and we have to just completely maintain it and make sure that we're doing things. And I did say before that these were really great back in the day, but things are changing in our watersheds. We have a completely different watershed upstream from these things, and that means that there's more water. There's going to be more impervious surfaces upstream, and that there's a lot more maintenance that goes into this. And this is sort of why we wanted to get it out in front of you to make sure that you see it and that and if there is any problems in the future, that we can at least go over it and you'll have an idea of what we're talking about and at least saw each one. And also, every year, we do have inspections and spot checks. So if y'all ever just want to get out and not have to be inside and want to do something, we take trucks out, we go look at them, we have a good day, try to go eat and everything. So, we just make a day of it. So, anyway, that's up to y'all, but I appreciate y'all. If you have any kind of questions for me, anything you want me to answer, we'll try our best.
Can you comment on which one of those watersheds has the best fishing?
Well, we actually call what we do is biological surveys. That's what our office does. We get out there and make sure that everything biologically is okay in those things. But no, I don't know. I have no idea. So you'll have to ask some of the older guys that have been out there. But
Fred knows.
Fred?
Let me say something about this.
Okay.
All of y'all know our new Doc Buckner.
Yeah.
This was a special thing for Doc.
Yeah.
And he was one of the main driving persons to get these dams constructed and placed and operating. And he didn't like anyone trying to do anything that would destroy these dams because he understood the severity of what that could be. So he needs a special comment now about what he did, Doc did, for the county. And so I'm just saying that. I worked with him on several of the problems where folks weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing, and Doc was very persistent.
2695 is how I knew Doc Butner. Caller ID. Okay, any other comments or questions?
I do have one more thing to say is that these have been submerged for 40 or 50 years, and a lot of them are iron things that are submerged. So if, like I said, these are working, maintaining things that we just have to keep up with and make sure that we're putting it out in front of you now, so.
Okay. All right. Evan, we appreciate you coming back, since you've already moved on to another job and county, coming back tonight to present this to our board.
No problem.
Okay.
And those tours he was talking about, it is a great experience to get out of the office or out of the what have you and see the county in places you maybe haven't seen before and really get an appreciation for the role and responsibility we have.
Does anyone wish to comment on the information we just heard? We are in a public hearing setting. So anybody on this side? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, how do chicken farms affect the flooding? If it flooded in Dysersville, for instance, got some pretty big chicken farms on some pretty rural land down there. I live up above one of them, and that's bottom line.
I'll let you answer it. Go ahead.
We'll let the feds get in on this conversation. Go ahead, Steve.
Volunteer time just ran out.
As Evan was saying, these was created in the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. And their primary purpose was to reduce flooding downstream. Before these structures was in place, hearing stories, seeing some of the pictures, Muddy Creek was a total loss. After they built, they store so many gallons of water, it has really reduced the runoff downstream. However, what we cannot control is the amount of runoff below the dams. So if you take that amount of water and the amount that's behind the dams, then we would have some catastrophic flooding. To my knowledge, we have not had any of the chicken houses flooded, that we've had a flock loss or it's been an environmental threat.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the water table.
The water table?
Yeah, get the water table being polluted.
It has never been an issue up at this point, and DWR continually inspects that. They are the enforcement authority on water quality, so those guys are continually monitoring.
Where are they now? Are they here in McDowell or are they in?
They're actually housed in Swannanoa.
Oh, okay.
But they have environmental specialists that comes to each county and periodically pulls water samples.
And answer your question, that might be a good number for her to have, that she can call and get some information directly from those guys.
Yes, yes. And they have a lot of, all of the 303, which is the impacted streams are listed on this website. So you can actually go to that website and look at the impaired streams in the county. 296, 4500.
I really didn't think we lived in a flood district.
Well, pre-1960s, it was very much a flood-prone area.
Okay.
There is more structures in McDowell County, however, they are in the second broad watershed, which is at the lower base of Glenwood.
Yeah.
Those are maintained and operated out of Rutherford County. But just because we have control of the 9, the other ones are done out of Rutherford County.
And if you're worried about chickens drowning, just open up the doors and let them go. They'll be fine.
I'm not worried about
Okay. All right, thanks, guys. Anybody else wish to make comment before we move on and go out of public hearing? Okay, what's the
Motion to go out of public hearing.
motion? Second. Discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, thank you. Let's move to our next item under new business. This will be tax matters. Mr. Wood, go ahead, sir, lead us out.
Yes, sir, you do have these before you. They're fairly routine. You do have some non-collectibles. They're on the front page, but everything else should be fairly routine.
Okay, comments or questions by board members?
Motion to approve all tax matters.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Okay, we have got reports, communications. Anything, Mr. Wooten?
Yes, I did want to make sure to point out the 4-H Achievement Night will be next Monday, and that starts at 6 p.m. And that will be at the First Baptist Church of Marion's Fellowship Hall, and you're all invited. There's usually a good turnout and a lot of good young people that have done a lot of great things for the county.
Okay. Any other places we need to be, gentlemen?
That's all I have.
Okay. We have one more item, item G. This will be our citizen comment. If anyone wishes to speak tonight, come up and sign your name and your topic, and we'll gladly hear you. All right, and we have accomplished everything on our agenda tonight. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Second, discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned.